You know, looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were always there, but I ignored them because that's what you do when you want to believe in something, right? I grew up in a house where I never quite belonged. My parents, Catherine and Frank, made sure I knew that. Ryan, my younger brother, was the star of the show. He could do no wrong. Broke a window? Oh, it's because he's so curious. Forgot to turn in homework? He's just under a lot of pressure to live up to his potential. Meanwhile, I was just Nathan, the one who could only seem to disappoint. When I turned 18, I left home without looking back. I scraped by on student loans, part-time jobs, and sheer determination. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it to be free of the constant comparisons and subtle digs. I built my life from scratch, piece by piece. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And eventually, things got better. I met Emily. Emily was like a ray of sunlight in a life that had been mostly cloudy. She was warm, funny, and made me feel like I was enough. For a while, I believed that maybe I didn't need the family that had never cared about me. Maybe I could create my own. We got married 2 years ago, and for the first time, I felt like I had a fresh start. Then, last year, Ryan reached out. It was out of the blue, a message on social media. He wanted to reconnect, said he and our parents missed me. Miss me? That was rich coming from the people who treated me like an afterthought for most of my life. But you know what? I let my guard down. I thought people change. Maybe they really do want to fix things. So, I let them back in. I even introduced them to Emily. Big mistake. At first, everything seemed fine. My parents were trying, or at least pretending to. They acted like they were interested in my life, even though they mostly talked about Ryan. He had some fancy corporate job, a new car, the works. They'd throw in a token, and how's your job, Nathan? Just to keep up appearances. Emily, bless her heart, was always so gracious. She'd squeeze my hand under the table when she noticed I was getting annoyed, silently telling me to let it go. And then there was Ryan, the same smug, self-centered guy he'd always been, only now with a sharper suit. He started visiting us more often, which I chalked up to him trying to make up for lost time. Emily seemed to get along with him. And why wouldn't she? He could charm the socks off anyone when he wanted to. Then came the pregnancy announcement. Emily told me she was expecting, and I was over the moon. Finally, I thought, something good was happening. I was going to be a dad. We started planning everything. The nursery, the baby names, even a little getaway before the baby arrived. Life felt right for once. But then Ryan started showing up even more. At first, it was just occasional visits, but soon it felt like he practically lived at our place. He'd rub Emily's pregnant belly like he was the dad and talk to it in this weird, possessive way that made my skin crawl. Emily brushed it off, saying I was overreacting. He's just excited for us, Nate, she'd say with that disarming smile of hers. But something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. So one night, while Emily was asleep, I went through her phone. I didn't want to. I hated myself for doing it, but I had to know. And there it was, text from Ryan. Not the kind of messages you send to your brother's wife. Explicit, intimate, a confession of an affair that had been going on for months. My heart sank. I confronted her the next morning, and after some initial denials, she admitted it. She told me the baby wasn't mine. She and Ryan had been planning to tell me after the baby was born, but I'd forced her hand. The woman I'd built my life around, the family I'd let back in, they'd all betrayed me. Again. It was like I was 18 all over again, packing my bags and swearing I'd never look back. Only this time, it wasn't just my parents I was leaving behind. It was the life I thought I was building, the home I thought I had. Emily, Ryan, my parents, they were all cut from the same cloth, and I was done. I filed for divorce the next day. Of course, my parents sided with Ryan and Emily. They said I was overreacting, that I should be happy they'd found love. Love? They'd shattered me, and they wanted me to celebrate it. So, I walked away again. Only this time, I wasn't sure I'd ever recover. I'd like to say I dove into self-healing and found clarity right away, but the truth? I was a complete mess. After filing for divorce and moving out of the house I'd once thought would be my safe haven, Emily got to keep the car, my car, along with a hefty settlement thanks to her lawyer spinning a story about how I was controlling. Controlling? I had given her everything, even when I had nothing, and now I had even less. The house was mine, at least, but it felt haunted by memories of laughter and whispered promises that I now knew were all lies. I spent the first few weeks and a days avoiding the kitchen because the sight of the table we'd sat at made me sick. I'd come home from work, sit on the couch, and stare at the walls until exhaustion took me. The silence was unbearable, but I couldn't bring myself to turn on the TV or play music. It all felt wrong, too bright, too loud for the hollow shell of a man I'd become. Work became my lifeline. I drowned myself in it, showing up early and leaving late. The more I worked, the less I thought about Emily, Ryan, and the baby that should have been mine. My colleagues noticed the change, of course. Burning the midnight oil again. Nate, someone would say, half joking. I'd laugh it off, telling them I was just aiming for that next promotion. But the truth was, I was running from my thoughts, my pain, and the life I no longer recognized. Then one day, the running paid off. I got called into my boss's office, and for once, it wasn't bad news. They'd noticed my hard work, my dedication. I was being promoted, more responsibility, a bigger paycheck, and a new company car. When I heard the news, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, pride. For the first time, I was being recognized for my own merits. Not overlooked, not dismissed, not compared to someone else. Just me, Nathan Cole. I decided to treat myself. A solo dinner at my favorite steakhouse, the kind of place Emily used to insist was too indulgent. I posted a picture of my meal online, not because I wanted to show off, but because it felt good to celebrate myself for once. Little did I know that picture would reopen a door I thought I'd slammed shut. It started with a text from my mother, Catherine. Saw your post, Nathan. Congrats on the promotion. Why don't you come visit? We miss you. Miss me? Really? The audacity was almost laughable. After months of silence, months of watching them cheer on Ryan and Emily as they paraded their betrayal, they suddenly wanted me back in their lives. I ignored the text, thinking it would end there. But my mother isn't one to take no for an answer. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. When texts didn't work, she started calling relentlessly. Finally, she showed up at my office, making a scene in the lobby until I agreed to meet with her. It was humiliating. My coworkers gave me sympathetic looks as I walked her out, but all I felt was anger. I didn't owe her anything, yet there I was, promising to visit just to get her to leave. When I arrived at their new house, a much bigger one, courtesy of the settlement I'd been forced to pay, it was just my parents waiting for me. Ryan wasn't home, and Emily was asleep upstairs with the baby. I sat stiffly in their pristine living room, waiting for them to explain why I was there. It didn't take long. Nathan, my father, Frank, began awkwardly, "Your brother lost his job, and, well, things have been tight around here. We were hoping you could help us out." Help them out? After everything? I stared at them, stunned. My mind raced as they continued explaining how the alimony and settlement weren't enough to cover their bills, especially with a newborn in the house. My parents, who had ignored my struggles for years, who had sided with Ryan and Emily without hesitation, were now asking me for money. The irony was almost too much to bear. I didn't say a word. I just stood up and left. As I reached the door, I ran into Ryan. His surprise quickly turned to smugness as he tried to stop me. "Nate, come on," he said, his tone as condescending as ever. "You're doing so well. It's not like this would hurt you." I ignored him and walked out into the pouring rain. My parents and Ryan followed me, their voices growing desperate. That's when I lost it. I turned to face them, rain dripping down my face, and said, "You want my help?" Beg on the streets. A stranger would show you more kindness than I ever will. Their shocked silence was more satisfying than I'd like to admit. I got into my car and drove off, leaving them standing in the rain. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control. You'd think leaving them in the rain would have been the end of it, a dramatic exit, a solid line drawn. But my family, they don't know when to quit. A couple of days later, there was a knock on my door. I should have ignored it. I should have known. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it to find Ryan standing there, looking as smug as ever. "Can we talk?" he said, like we were just two brothers catching up over coffee. I didn't invite him in. I didn't even step aside. I just leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "What do you want, Ryan?" He launched into some rehearsed speech about how hard things had been for him and how he needed my help. He even threw in a half-hearted apology for everything that happened. But the thing about Ryan is, he can't help himself. The mask always slips. "You know," he said, smirking, "I get it. You're jealous. I mean, I can't blame you. I've always been better at, well, everything. It must be hard living in my shadow." I laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a deep, bitter laugh that surprised even me. "Ryan," I said, "you're unemployed, living with our parents, and begging me for money. If that's the shadow I'm supposed to be jealous of, you can keep it." That hit a nerve. His face turned red, and he started yelling, accusing me of being petty and vindictive. "You're just bitter because even your wife preferred me," he spat. "And now you're punishing mom and dad for it." I shook my head. "Punishing them? They punished themselves. You all did. And now you're dealing with the consequences. Don't blame me for finally standing up for myself." I closed the door in his face and thought that was the end of it. I should have known better. A week later, I got a call from Emily. I almost didn't answer. The sound of her name on my phone made my stomach turn, but I figured it was better to deal with her than risk her showing up unannounced. Her voice was sweet, sickly sweet, as she tried to appeal to my better nature. "Nathan," she said, "I know you're hurt, but can't you see that we're struggling? The settlement isn't enough, and with the baby, we just need a little help. Be the bigger person." The bigger person? That phrase sent me over the edge. "You mean like you and Ryan were when you lied to me for months? When you planned to keep me in the dark about the baby until you couldn't anymore? Spare me the lecture, Emily." She started crying, of course, accusing me of being selfish and heartless. When that didn't work, she turned to threats. "Fine," she snapped. "If you won't help us, I'll take you back to court. You've got a promotion now, so don't think I can't get more alimony out of you." I wasn't the same broken man she'd steamrolled during the divorce. "Try it," I said. "This time, I'll fight back. And trust me, Emily, you won't win." And fight back I did. When Emily filed for more alimony, I decided I'd had enough. I hired a new lawyer, someone who wasn't afraid to go to war for me. Together, we built a case, gathering everything: texts, emails, witness testimonies. Friends who'd been there through the fallout stepped up, ready to tell the truth about Emily and Ryan's betrayal. Even a couple of cousins who'd seen how my family treated me growing up agreed to speak out. The court date came, and I walked in with my head held high. Emily, Ryan, and my parents were all there, sitting together like some twisted version of a family. I didn't look at them. I focused on my lawyer, on the evidence we'd collected, on finally setting the record straight. And we did. The judge listened as my lawyer laid out the facts: the affair, the lies, the manipulation. By the end of it, Emily's crocodile tears couldn't save her. The judge ruled in my favor, terminating the alimony agreement. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd felt in years. But my family wasn't done yet. That same evening, I found them on my doorstep. Ryan, my parents, even Emily carrying the baby. I didn't even let them speak. "Get off my property," I said, "or I'll call the cops." My father, Frank, stepped forward, his face twisted in anger. "You should be ashamed of yourself," he said. "You've turned your back on your family." I stared at him, the man who had spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't enough. "No," I said quietly. "You turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm just finally returning the favor." Ryan, of course, couldn't resist one last jab. "You're nothing, Nathan. You always have been. You'll die alone." I looked at him, at all of them, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just relief. "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'll have my self-respect." They left after that, their threats and guilt trips falling on deaf ears. For the first time in my life, I felt free. In the days that followed, I started putting the pieces of my life back together. I redecorated the house, clearing out every reminder of Emily and the life we'd planned. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away during the worst of it, slowly rebuilding the relationships that truly mattered. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll find love again, or maybe I won't. But one thing's for sure. I'll never let anyone make me feel small again. Not my family, not Emily, not anyone.